Greetings, imagination connoisseurs. Once again, it is I, your Duke of Dope Discourse, Robert Meyer Burnett. I invite you to watch and listen to the Designing Hollywood podcast, brought to you by Martika Ibarra and the great, legendary Hollywood costume designer, Marilyn Vance. I am afforded the wonderful opportunity of co-hosting the show. If you are interested in the magic of Hollywood, the design of Hollywood, the clothes of Hollywood, watch the Designing Hollywood podcast, available wherever you get your podcasts from, or find the video version on the John Campea YouTube channel. That's right, the Designing Hollywood podcast. Why would you ever want to miss it? Especially if you love the movies.
Hey, my name is King, or as some of you might know me better, Israel. I've gotten around, but hopefully you recognize me from my own channel, King Tannic. There's a new show coming to the Burnettwork that I think is pretty exciting. Welcome to the Otaku Experience, hosted by yours truly. This is going to be a weekly series where we dive into the news and the world of anime, manga, and whatever the heck else Japan has to offer us. The show will be pre-recorded and premiere on Thursdays at 2 p.m. Pacific Time or 5 p.m. Eastern, right here on the Burnettwork YouTube channel.
Robservations with Robert Meyer Burnett.
Well, greetings, imagination connoisseurs. Once again, it is I, your Duke of Dope Discourse, your master of fun and wonder, your viceroy of verisimilitude, your sommelier of sci-fi and cinema, your archbishop of Banterbury, your evangelist of the imagination, and the still as yet undefined existential Mr. Rogers. That's right, me, Robert Meyer Burnett, and I am robcasting at you. You, imagination connoisseurs, you members of this, the Post-Geek Singularity community. Good to have you here. This is Robservations, episode number 832. You know, there's been a lot of talk, actually not a lot of talk, much talk during the last 3 years, during the pandemic and moving out of the pandemic, about the viability of the theatrical business, movie-going, theatrical exhibition business. Is it viable? And every time there's a big win at the box office, James Cameron's Way of Water becoming the third or fourth highest grossing film of all time, James Cameron has Way of Water and Titanic in movie theaters this upcoming weekend. Yep, they're re-releasing Titanic for Valentine's Day in 3D, in the same screens that Way of Water's in, which is actually kind of cool. And it brings up the idea that, well, of course, the theatrical movie-going experience is still viable. Isn't it a good business? $2 billion? Here's the thing. We have thousands of screens across America, and less all the time. Regal, Cineworld, a subsidiary of Cineworld, Regal has had to close cinemas all across the country because Cineworld is in a bankruptcy situation, and they're trying to figure out ways to cut costs, Chapter 11, all that thing. The actual theater that I saw Way of Water in closing, a gigantic multiplex structure with a true great, not a Limax, but a real IMAX screen, and many other auditoriums just down the highway from where I live here. And I like that theater a lot. The IMAX presentation was fantastic. It's a theater that's closed. My beloved Cinerama, part of the ArcLight theater chain, gone. I mean, I've been going to the Cinerama since I moved to L.A. To me, the Cinerama, the giant domed Cinerama, it said everything about movies I needed to know. Interestingly enough, I grew up in Seattle, Washington, and the Cinerama Dome, or it wasn't a dome, but the Cinerama Theater in Seattle was bought by Paul Allen's Vulcan Group, and it has been shuttered for 3 years. They spent a lot of money renovating that theater. It's in downtown Seattle. It's in a very, there's now lots of high-end apartments and condominiums in that area of town. It's in a very densely populated area of Seattle. It's been closed for 3 years. They spent a lot of money remodeling that theater. Since Paul Allen passed away, they don't know what to do with it. Closed. And by the way, that theater, the inside of the Cinerama, they own the Cinerama building, Vulcan does, and the adjacent parking structure, which was turned into a high-rise apartment complex, condo complex, closed. Truly one of the great movie theaters in the world, in Seattle. One of the great movie going. When I was growing up, I'm not just saying so because I'm from Seattle. Per capita, when I was growing up, Seattle had more movie theaters than any other city in the country. I remember Richard Rush, the late, great Richard Rush, who made one of my favorite movies ever, The Stuntman. He brought The Stuntman to have its world premiere in Seattle. It played for a long time. I think it opened at the Guild 45th. Most of the theaters that I grew up going to in Seattle are gone. So in my lifetime, I have watched the theatrical experience change. It went from large, big venues, big single-screen venues, into the multiplex. And I understand. Movie-going has changed throughout my entire life. Also, when I was 13 years old, I started working at Seattle's Seattle had what is generally considered the second video store in the United States. The first was Video Station, spearheaded by Andre Blay, one of my personal heroes. Andre Blay here in California. Weston Nishimura, who later founded the VSDA, the Video Software Dealers Association of America. I started working at Video Space, and it was weird. It was like a pie. It was carved out of a Magnolia Hi-Fi. It's like it was an office that they turned into a video store. That was really my first. I had a paper route. I worked at a frame store, and the guys who ran that video store, shout out to Steve Pitcher and Bud Warner. Bud Warner kind of had to give me a job because I was a 13-year-old kid flush with bar mitzvah money that would go to this video store. And I would just take the bus out there and wander around, even though it was this tiny store. And they said, "Hey, you want to shrink wrap boxes?" When new tapes came in, and I said, "Yes, I do." And I worked at Video Space till whatever day Greystoke, The Legend of Tarzan, Lord of the Apes came out. It's a very funny story, but the first time I ever and I think it might have been, I have been fired from jobs in my life, not many times, but it was the first time I was fired by somebody I had beef with that I didn't realize. As a kid, I worked at multiple Video Space locations, and one of the guys, I was in the back room at 16. He thought I was like trying to rob the store. He didn't realize I'd worked there since long before he was there. When he became general manager, one of his first acts was to get rid of me. And he said it was the night that Greystoke, The Legend of Tarzan, Lord of the Apes opened, and I remember that because I had a date that night at the John Dance Theater, which was a big single-screen venue where I saw Star Trek: The Motion Picture and Logan's Run and Spy Who Loved Me, and First Run, by the way. And he said, "Don't think of this as being fired. Think of it as being laid off." I'm 16, and even then I was like, "Fuck you, dude. Come on. What are you saying?" But anyway, in my lifetime, I've watched the movie business. It's always been in flux. And for me, I go all the way back to when I was 13, and home video started its meteoric rise and changed the landscape of movie-going. However, all the doomsayers at the beginning of the home video age, back in the late 70s, early 80s, were saying things like, this is going to be the demise of the theatrical business. No one is going to go to movies. And I'm not saying I was some wise, sage-like 13-year-old, but even I, as a fanatical movie fan at 13, was saying, that's ridiculous. Home video is going to turn everyone into movie fanatics. They're going to be, once you can throw your own film festival all weekend long and then go see the new movie coming out from whoever you've been watching movies from, it's going to make people film fanatics. Now, it's hard for me to convey how amazing it was at the time to be able to bring movies home. It seems silly to say this now because I worked in home video 43 years ago. And it's funny, I'm not gonna lie, when John poo-poos my love of physical media on the John Campea show, I want to turn to him and I want to say, dude, I started working in home video and working with physical media as an income source and as something I loved since 1980, when I actually acquired my first piece of physical media, which, as longtime viewers of the show know, that it was John Carpenter's Halloween. And it was on Meta Home Entertainment before it had become Media, brought to you by Charles Band. Yes, that Charles Band, Subspecies Charles Band, Puppet Master Charles Band, From Beyond and Reanimator Charles Band, back when he had Empire. He started video companies like Media. Meta was the name of first name of his first wife. But then he started things like Wizard Video, and I've been working in physical media and working in that business for 43 years. Tango Shalom, which came out last year, unfortunately, there's no special features on it. Maybe if it comes out in Germany, I'll be able to put my Tango Shalom making of on it. But the last time I had physical media come out, a film I produced called The Hills Run Red came out in 2020, and Dave Parker and I, the director of the film, created 8 hours of special features for that disc, and it was nominated for a Rondo Award for Best Special Features of the Year, and that was in 2020. And I started working on DVD documentaries and later Blu-ray and then 4K documentaries in 1999. So I have a long history in home video. I worked in Laserdiscs and all that. The point is that I've seen the business change. And unfortunately, what has happened with the rise of streaming and people staying home, when television, the advent of television, which you can kind of equate what happened with streaming or what is happening with streaming to what happened when Hollywood had to face television basically in the 50s. Now, movies used to be essentially, I'm simplifying. I don't mean to insinuate that Wizard of Oz and Gone with the Wind were like TV shows, but the aspect ratio was essentially the same. It was a 4:3 square aspect ratio. And when Hollywood was challenged by television, what they did was they went wider. They created different formats like VistaVision and CinemaScope, and you got widescreen movies where they couldn't on TV replicate the experience of seeing giant images on the screen anymore. And that was what Hollywood did to combat the onslaught of television. And then, of course, movies wound up on television. But now we have a sort of a different... Back then, movies were much more affordable than they are now. A family of four didn't have to spend $100 to go to a movie park and buy tickets and buy refreshments. It's expensive to go to movies now. But what has changed fundamentally, even what's changed from the 1950s, what's changed even during the home video era when they thought, Steven Spielberg, and I'm paraphrasing, once said that to see the blood, sweat, and tears that he poured into making Close Encounters reduced to a cassette that would fit in the palm of his hand was more than disconcerting. And so there were a lot of people that didn't dig home video. It took E.T. a long time to come to home video. But the difference is now, the way I see it, is that movies themselves have been diminished as far as our culture is concerned. We now live in a world where much of our entertainment is, I guess, existentially, we have become the stars, not just of our own reality shows, but we have become the focus of our own entertainment. When you play a video game, and let's face it, Hogwarts Legacy, which drops tomorrow, drops Friday, midnight tonight. When does it drop? Hogwarts Legacy is a game where you're the player. You're the protagonist of these stories. Just like with TikTok videos or what's happened with everything from any kind of online discourse, you're the star. You're the focus, whether you're interacting. And that, look, I'm as guilty as the next person. Don't call it guilty, but I can sit there and get sucked in and watch reels on Instagram or Facebook or TikTok or whatever and just go zing, 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 zing. And I can see 2 hours of my time just disappear into a black hole because instant dopamine responses or whatever, but it's also entertainment. And, you have to ask yourself, what is that entertainment like? That 2 hours of time, that two hour block of time, how are you going to use it? Now, a large-scale studio movie takes 2 years to get made. a science fiction film like a Star Wars or a Marvel film, you're looking at 2 years of time. It takes a long time to shoot. Then a film's in post with visual effects. It's 2 years of time. Comes out, it's 2 hours long. Now, what's happened is there is no longer any difference between watching YouTube videos. I watch a lot of YouTube, watch a lot of YouTube creators. I skip around, I watch a lot of news. But I have to say, even I can understand that there is as much entertainment value to be found in watching, say, a long-form Joe Rogan podcast as there is in watching a 3-hour movie. The difference is sometimes a 3-hour movie took years, if not decades, to get made. And we now, in our lives, there's no differentiation between the time you spent watching entertainment, whether you're playing video games, whether you're talking to your friends, whether you are watching, whether it's TikTok, whatever, Reels, whatever entertainment you're watching online. It's the same 2-hour block of time, the same 2 hours of your life. And it used to be movies held a certain place, a certain regard. Now, unfortunately, all content has been, the playing field is level. Entertainment, movies themselves have diminished. I mean, I'm old school, so to me, movies were the art form of the 20th century. It had taken all previous art forms, music, movement, art, call it what you want. All of the artistic endeavors that human history was full of had the added benefit of technology that didn't previously exist to create movies, to create the moving picture. And that's why movies were the dominant art form of the 20th century. I think the 21st century, there's going to be a combination of virtual reality and AI. I don't think that, and I've said this before on the show, movies that did not have sound until about 1927. I would expect with our exponentially growing computer technology, our biotechnology, and our advances in entertainment technology and AI are leading us to whatever the new entertainment medium is of the 21st century. It's going to be a combination of all these things. Movies are part of it. Literature, storytelling is part of it, but so is going to be AI, virtual technology. We just haven't seen it emerge yet. And like the coming singularity, as Ray Kurzweil would say, or the Post-Geek singularity you imagination connoisseurs live in right now, it's going to be something new and something different, and not something to be feared. However, I can't help but lament the stature of movies now, because they don't hold, especially with younger people, the importance that they held to me when I was a kid. Anyway, I want to go back and I want to share with you an article I found in Variety in 2017. And this article is The Reckoning. Now remember, this is from 6 years ago. Why the Movie Business is in Trouble. And it's written by Brent Lang. Anyone in the movie business who tells you they're not scared stiff about the future is probably lying. Again, from 6 years ago. There's ample reason to be fearful. It's been 128 years since Thomas Edison first helped usher in the theatrical exhibition with the creation of the kinescope, an early motion picture viewing device. In the ensuing century, cinema has given audiences Garbo and Rin Tin Tin, introduced May the Force Be With You into the cultural lexicon, and dazzled crowds with man-eating sharks and dinosaurs so massive and menacing they could barely be contained on even the most cavernous of screens. Despite that history, there was mounting anxiety among theater owners, studio executives, filmmakers, and cinephiles that the lights may be starting to flicker. As consumer tastes and demands change, Hollywood is scrambling to adapt. Instead of surrendering to existential dread, studio chiefs and exhibitors are showing a greater willingness to experiment, particularly when it comes to releasing movies in the home within weeks of their theatrical debut. For between $30 and $50 per rental. My, how that's changed in only 6 years, right? If that comes to pass, it would represent the biggest distribution and exhibition shakeup since the introduction of the DVD created a home entertainment windfall in the late 1990s. Some industry veterans are unconvinced that the business can pull it off. Structurally, these studios and the agencies and exhibitors that orbit them are too sprawling, too slow-moving, and too entangled in a dizzying web of antiquated business practices and associations to respond effectively to the digital era. The major studios have not been choreographed or run to be entrepreneurial, says Amir Malin, managing principal and co-founder of the Qualia Capital and former CEO of Artisan Entertainment. It's a system that's been intoxicated with a cover-my-ass mentality, which, by the way, that has not changed. Simply put, it's a defective system, and when a business paradigm is defective, very good people start doing things that are counterproductive. There are two major problems gripping the industry. Younger audiences are becoming more interested in streamable content that is accessible on their iPhones or tablets. That certainly was true. They'll still turn up at the multiplexes to see the Avengers Save the World or watch Han Solo slide behind the wheel of the Millennium Falcon. But despite a few massive blockbusters, the zeitgeist continues to shift from the big to the small screen. I think the proof is right there in front of us, what's happening in cable and streaming services, says Lorenzo de Bonaventura, producer of the Transformers films. Directors want to go there because they're able to tell interesting stories. That's where the chances are being taken. That's where the action is now. The other problem is that the financial underpinnings of the business are showing signs of strain. Nowhere is this clearer than the barriers that are springing up between Hollywood and its most reliable sources of capital. The smart money left the business years ago, partly because of Silicon Valley's promise of fortune, but also because investors were put off by creative studio accounting that turned hits into financial losers. Now, new money, particularly that which has been pouring in from China, appears to be drying up. Chinese authorities are putting tight restrictions on foreign investment, limiting the flow of capital into the investment industry. That resulted in a failed $1 billion sale of Dick Clark Productions to Dali and Wanda, and the potential collapse of another $1 billion slate financing pact between Paramount and two Chinese players, Huahua Media and Shanghai Film Group. That, by the way, that deal did, in fact, fall through. They think Chinese companies are overpaying for Hollywood and they're slowing it down, says entertainment attorney Skylar Moore, partner at Strzok, who has been involved in arranging slate financing deals for the likes of DreamWorks and Warner Brothers. Moore thinks that Chinese investment may be gone for good. It pretty much is, and that other forms of venture capital will transition away from film to emerging forms of popular entertainment, such as virtual reality. The interest is not in the traditional film model, says Moore. All investors see there is trouble. Optimists maintain that revenue is still growing. The domestic box office hit a record $11 billion in 2016, and the global box office reached a new high watermark of $38.6 billion. 3 months in, 2017 has already fielded such blockbusters as Beauty and the Beast and Logan. But that growth is being driven by higher ticket prices and inflation. Simply put, fewer people are going to the movies. U.S. and Canadian attendance has failed to match the 1.5 billion admissions that the industry hit in 2024. This article goes on, and here's the thing. Everything this article says, it came to pass. Now, on one hand, you might look at me and go, well, Rob, what about horror films? If you look at the box office of horror films, especially recently, you've got hits like Smile, Terrifier 2, Barbarian, and Blumhouse just cranks out one hit after another. They have a Knock at the Cabin came out this week, and of course you've got Jason Blum and James Wan, the two powerhouses of horror, teaming up to create a new studio, and they have right now Megan, which might hit $100 million. Megan 2.0 has already been announced. So, for horror films, which still are attracting young audiences as horror films always did, the theatrical model for horror films is still viable because people, like with superhero movies, like with Marvel or big blockbuster films, which is where the studios have gone, people will go see horror in a theater because that collective theatrical experience still means something. But as we've seen, if you look at all the Oscar hopefuls and the people that are nominated for the Academy Awards, how many of you have seen the Oscar-nominated films? Not a lot of people have seen The Fabelmans, and that's from Steven Spielberg, one of the world's greatest directors. The difference is that movies have become spectacle. Maybe they always were, But movies used to do all kinds of things. If you wanted romance, you would go to a theater. If you wanted action adventure, you'd go to a theater. If you wanted to feel, I don't know, as erudite as your smart friends, you'd go to a foreign film in a theater. Even foreign films are more like RRR. They're no longer like Antonioni's Ennui trilogy of La Notte, La Ventura, and The Eclipse. I can't even imagine. My beloved Antonioni's Ennui trilogy. I can't even imagine anyone putting it in a theater. You know, before I met Elizabeth, the girlfriend I had before that, I took her to see last year at Marienbad that was playing at the ArcLight. Well, let me tell you, both the ArcLight and last year at Marienbad probably saw their last projector bulb. Unless you go to France. I've often thought I'd move to France in my old age if for no other reason than I can always go to the cinema and find some place playing Casablanca in Paris, because cinema will always be considered art in France, assuming there's a Europe to go to, of course. Now, there was an article today, Barry Diller. Barry Diller, a lot of people don't know who Barry Diller is now, unless you know that he's married to Diane von Furstenberg, and they spent like $1 billion putting that waterfront park up in New York. That's, I guess, by Hudson Yards. But Barry Diller was a guy that I knew his name in the 70s and 80s because he took over Paramount when Star Trek: The Motion Picture was being made. Jeffrey Katzenberg and Barry Diller kind of ran that place. But when Barry Diller was he used to worked at ABC before that, and Barry Diller created the ABC Movie of the Week, and you know they did like I don't know if you guys remember Guys, Girls, Gentle Beings, Kind Souls, however you identify. If you're part of this audience, you're welcome here. But in the 70s, when I was growing up as a kid, the TV movies that were made were dope, especially when they were horror themed, like The Stranger Within with Barbara Eden, or an adaptation of Theodore Sturgeon's Killdozer, or Satan's School for Girls, or Bad Ronald, or Don't Be Afraid of the Dark that Guillermo del Toro once adapted. By the way, I tried to get the rights to Don't Be Afraid of the Dark when I was a young whippersnapper at Warner Brothers in 1990. And I'll tell you, I had to call, I want to say it was Bob Bookman at CAA. Here I was, 22 years old. I'm calling from Warner Brothers. I'm calling from Bill Young's office. And it was great. I was trying to get the rights to Don't Be Afraid of the Dark, the TV movie. That was actually written by the guy who created the Waltons, I want to say. Of course, once there was interest shown by anybody, CA is like, fuck that kid. And then Don't Be Afraid of the Dark spent the 90s and the aughts in development hell until Guillermo del Toro was able to make it. I would have made it better, just so you know. Just kidding. But TV movies were awesome. Barry Diller, he's the man. But, he was at Paramount when Paramount was in its early 80s heyday. Raiders, Beverly Hills Cop, the Star Trek franchise. Well, so Barry Diller is, and then after that he went to Fox and QVC and all that. You know, he's now a philanthropist, billionaire, whatever he does. But Barry Diller is still considered his word is still considered sage-like in the industry. And in Los Angeles Magazine, there was an article about Barry Diller today that, of course, got picked up by many of the different news agencies. And this is what Barry Diller had to say. And this isn't the first time he said it. But when Barry Diller talks, people listen. By the way, this is the Popcast guys made Terry Metalis merch for Star Trek Picard. Tomorrow is the premiere at the Chinese Theater. And I'm wearing, happily, my Terry Metalis Terry Trek merch t-shirt. Go get it from the Popcast guys. It's unauthorized, but tell them I sent you. So anyway, Barry Diller says, Lauren Abruzinar put this out yesterday. Barry Diller says, the Oscars are over and the movie business is finished. The Oscars have been in shocking decline for years, from plummeting ratings, representation issues, the irrelevance of old Hollywood in the face of streamers, not to mention this year's Andrea Riseborough controversy, Envelope Gate, and Will Smith's handsy tantrum. Recently, former Paramount CEO Barry Diller offered his own prognosis of the beleaguered industry showcase. Spoiler alert, the situation's terminal. It's an antiquity, the current IAC and Expedia chairman told Firing Line's Margaret Hoover of the awards process. Citing the Riceboro affair, Diller noted the internal collapse the movie and award show industry have long been suffering. All award ceremonies were based on this hierarchical process of a movie going to a theater, building up some word of mouth if it was successful, having that word of mouth carry itself over, Diller said, and that path no longer exists. This isn't the first time Diller has warned that the sky is falling on the film industry. In 2021, he proclaimed to NPR, I can't read tonight, he proclaimed to NPR that the movie business was dead, with no path toward revival. Where some may lay blame on increasing ticket prices, the pandemic, the surge of streaming platforms critical in consumer popularity, Diller notes the perfect storm created by all of these, underscored by the quality over quantity dilemma. I used to be in the movie business, where you made something really because you cared about it, he told NPR. The very definition of movie, he went on, is in such transition that it doesn't mean anything right now. The sudden cultural ambiguity of movies and how we both define and value them is having an impact on how we access them as well. Last year, Regal Cinema's parent company, Cineworld Group, filed for bankruptcy after struggling with low admissions and a limited slate of films. As a result, nearly 40 theaters across the country will be shuttered this month. Meanwhile, the number of movies released to more than 2,000 theaters is down more than 30% from 2018 and 2019. So what does all this have to do with the Academy Awards? Part of it comes down to the fact that the show won audiences by relying on a correlation between a movie's popularity and its success on the award show circuit. That disappeared a while ago, Diller said. As a result, the Oscars are no longer a national audience worth its candle because that audience is no longer interested. Now, let me be clear right here. He's right. As much as I'm loath to admit it, he is right. There is absolutely no longer a correlation between the Oscar-nominated films and the audiences. You can see it in graphic detail. Sure, there are exceptions. But, I got into an argument with John Campea on his show a couple weeks back where I said it used to be that the movies that made the most money, for the most part, were also some of our biggest Oscar nominees. He argued with me, but the research, as viewers of this channel sent to me, bared me out. And it wasn't like I wasn't dissing on the Oscars. I think John was defensive and wanted to defend the idea of Oscars, which he and I both love. We're on the same side of the fence. We love the Oscars. But unfortunately, the difference, what has happened is that the studios used to make movies like Gandhi, or they would release movies like Amadeus. Warner Brothers made Roland Joffe's The Killing Fields, which competed against Amadeus for the Oscars. Amadeus won. But can you imagine Warner Brothers making a movie like The Killing Fields today? Can you imagine Sony, as they're working on Madam Web and Kraven the Hunter, putting out a movie, a Gandhi biopic that's 3 hours long, directed by Richard Attenborough, that ended up winning Best Picture? Can you believe that? Would you imagination connoisseurs, you members of the Post-Geek Singularity, how many of you would run out to a movie theater and go see a biopic about Mahatma Gandhi right now? Well, let me tell you, when I was growing up in high school and junior high, I would. As a matter of fact, I would go see it, and so would my friends, because we would go see movies, and the movies that the studios were making, whether it was horror, the Friday the 13th sequels in the early 80s, whether it was Rocky sequels, whether it was Star Wars, whether it was, hell, I would go see in theaters. My friend Adam Carl and I would go see what we thought would be the worst movies of the week that were released in theaters. I would go see the cutdown of Lucio Fulci's The Beyond, which was called Seven Doors of Death. I would go to the Crossroads Cinema, go see Seven Doors of Death. I'd go see Dressed to Kill. I'd go see Escape from New York. These movies were all in theaters. There was a wide diversity of subject matter, a wide diversity of kinds of movies, and the studios were making films that were both important, Oscar-worthy, and also wildly entertaining. You know, one of my favorite movies is a movie called Network. I believe not a lot of you probably haven't even heard of it. But it was a movie that was made in the 70s that had Beatrice Straight, by the way. Network is known because Beatrice Straight won a Supporting Actress Academy Award for a role where she was only in the movie for 5 minutes plus. For those of you who want to know who Beatrice Straight is, if you're Poltergeist fans, she was the older woman that was part of the psychic research group that came to the Freelings house. And she won an award. Well, I loved Network when I first saw it. I saw it in a movie theater. I want to say Network was, 76, 77? I don't remember the actual date. It was written by a guy named Paddy Chayefsky, who is one of the great writers of cinema and plays. He wrote, like, The Hospital. He was an incredible writer. A lot of people, sci-fi fans, imagination connoisseurs, might remember him from Altered States, although he sort of disowned Altered States. He didn't really like what Ken Russell did to his book. But I'll tell you something. Even Altered States, shot by Jordan Cronenweth, who shot Blade Runner, Altered States was a big deal when it came out. Visual effects. How many people watching this show right now have seen Altered States? William Hurt, Bob Balaban. I mean, it was a big sci-fi. I couldn't wait to see Altered States. Altered States was an elevated Warner Brothers science fiction film that, boy, for their 100th anniversary, I sure would love to get a 4K disc of Altered States. You know what? Not going to get it. Not going to get it. I mean, they have released it on disc. I have a Blu-ray of Altered States, but when I was growing up, Altered States was a big movie. Now, other than George Feltenstein, I bet you'd be hard-pressed to find somebody at Warner Brothers who even remembers Altered States. And that's the problem with our business, or the business, as if I'm part of it. I try and be, not just an online pundit. But let me go back to what barrydiller was saying here. So what does all this have to do with the Academy Awards? Part of it comes down to the fact that the show won audiences by relying on a correlation between a movie's popularity and its success on the award show circuit. That disappeared a while ago, Diller said. As a result, the Oscars are no longer a national audience worth its candle because that audience is no longer interested. Though the Academy recently welcomed a new CEO, Bill Kramer, intent on embracing change so as not to be capsized by it, the question now involves what exactly would have to change to recapture the interest. This is a different moment in time for the film industry, Kramer told LA Mag recently. We just survived a pandemic. Theatrical releases don't look the way they used to. Streaming is becoming a big part of our life. We need to evolve and be at the center of those conversations while still recognizing and supporting and preserving cinema. I think we can all do that. And though the Oscars could keep limping along for a while yet, that particularly fondling of trophies is already too sad for many to see. When asked what, if anything, the Celebrity Gala could do anything to survive, Diller replied that the ceremony's only chance is to aim for a smaller, less discerning audience. It should be for the industry, he said, and not for the consumers. He's right. When the Oscars started, they were for the industry. They weren't for consumers. And then it became a thing. Movies became the dominant art form of the 20th century, and everyone loved them. Now, as I talked about earlier, the entire audience has changed. People don't love movies the way they used to. I mean, hell, look at the online discourse for movies the way they are now. It's pretty crazy. And unfortunately, like I don't mean to be some doomsayer to say that no one loves movies anymore, because people do. But first of all, the issue-oriented films people used to watch, call them the oscarbait movies, they don't exist in cinemas anymore. Studios, they aren't even making them. Who is making them? Streamers are making them. And there usually is 10-part series now. And here's the thing. I don't have a problem with that. I think we're getting better, more well-produced programming. I mean, I still call it television programming, but call it streaming, call it whatever you want. Television has never been better. I mean, whether you're watching The Last of Us, a video game adaptation, or Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon, or take your pick. Even Apple Plus has a movie that's about to drop called Sharper that Julianne Moore decided to produce after finding a blacklist script. Sharper, starring Sebastian Stan and Julianne Moore, and I think Justice Smith is in it as well, and of course, there's other actors in it too. John Lithgow is in it. He plays a billionaire patriarch that Julianne Moore's in love with. Here's a film that a studio would have made. No one's going to make that movie now. Studios, you think Fatal Attraction, one of the biggest hits of 1987, would a studio make that? Hell no. They're not going to make movies that Hunt for Red October. Now it would be a 10-part miniseries. Nobody would make that movie. It's unfortunate. The world has changed. The Oscars no longer have... You can talk about... Here's the thing. The audience for the Oscars isn't there because nobody's seen the movies that are nominated for Oscars. It's a very simple equation. If movies are hits and a lot of the audience has seen them, then they'll watch the Oscars. But judging by the box office of a lot of the nominated movies and the controversy that erupts, I mean, it's very funny that Andrea Riseborough, there's a controversy because people saw her performance in To Leslie, where she plays an alcoholic. That movie would have been like 40 years ago, a movie everybody talked about. No one saw that movie. It made like $30,000, literally $30,000 at the box office. So her friends tweet about it, actors and actresses that really liked the movie. And suddenly, Andrea Riseborough, who probably helped that movie get financed, it was clearly a labor of love, is suddenly in an Oscar controversy about whether or not there was some kind of illicit campaigning done. And now the director of a movie like The Woman King, which plays fast and loose with a historical record, let's face it, is talking about how Viola Davis, congratulations on your EGOT, Viola, was somehow shut out of the Oscars because of some illicit campaigning. And people are making it a racial issue. Not to, let's not talk about Michelle Yeoh or let's not talk about Ana de Armas. You've got a Latino woman and you have an Asian woman competing for Best Actress. You're not even the right race to complain anymore. I mean, and this is what is dominating our cultural conversation, not the actual art itself or the historical veracity of that art. That might have played into what Academy voters were looking at as well. Not exactly historically accurate, that movie, The Woman King, was. But that's okay. But let's not, why do you have to take away the accomplishments of people and make it... I mean, it's all become so distasteful all across the board. And it's unfortunate because I thought Viola Davis was great in The Woman King. But you know what? Andrea Riseborough, and it costs... You have to download, you have to pay money to get it. Her performance is astonishing. And I would say that Viola Davis's performance in The Woman King is it's a showier performance. She gets to do more stuff. But Andrea Riseborough, it's more showy, but digs deep inside in what she was able to do in that film. And Andrea Riseborough is a chameleon. For those of you who might wonder, who is she? Well, if you've ever seen Joseph Kosinski's Oblivion with Tom Cruise, she was Tom Cruise's clone lover. Oh, wait, did I just spoil the movie? They were an effective team. And if you were to see her in Oblivion and then see her in To Leslie, you'd be like, that's the same person? Yes, it is. So our culture has changed. And it's funny because the studios now, they used to make movies if they spent $10 million on a movie and they made $100 million on a movie. Well, that was good business. Because normally with movies, if you make... It used to be 3 times, but 4 times what a movie cost, and anything beyond that was a hit. So nowadays you're seeing producers like guys like Roy Lee making a movie like Barbarian for $4.5 million, and it grosses $40 million. After marketing, studio overhead, whatever, that's a big win. And what's interesting and it's working theatrically. Look at Smile. $17 million spend? Movie makes $200 million. It's huge. But the studio's like, they don't, The corporately held studios, you know what? A $200 million gross on a $17 million spend, well, that's fine, but that's not going to help their stock price grow up or go up. They need a $100 million or $200 million movie that grosses $2 billion for anybody to even bother to take notice. And that's part of the problem of our society. And I'm a capitalist at heart. I believe in capitalism when it's not perverted by greed, which is a really hard thing to do. But that's kind of, it's a very interesting place that we find ourselves in. Do I think that theatrical business is going away? Not entirely, but it is changing. And do the Oscars have any relevance anymore? I think that the question is, movies themselves don't have the relevance that they used to have. And I think Barry Diller is actually right when he says maybe the Oscars should be for the industry. I mean, nobody stands up or watches the Key Art Awards. Nobody even knows what key art is anymore because they don't use key art as much as they used to. And key art hasn't been very good since the 80s anyway. So what does it matter? But it's a different world that we live in. And the world is changing underneath us all the time. And the movie business, they relied on a model that existed for the better part of a century. And that model has changed. And if people want to be moved, I mean, when was the last time you heard, you imagination connoisseurs, when was the last time my audience heard people talking as much about how emotionally moved they were? I mean, Top Gun Maverick. I'll tell you, man, when Iceman and Maverick hug in his office and then Iceman you know what? You've all seen it. When Iceman dies and you're at his funeral, it's emotional. The Last of Us, episode 3, emotional. When was the last time you went to a movie that truly elicited that kind of emotion in you? That's the problem. The movies that are supposed to elicit emotion in you are designed, they're telling you from the get, these are important films with important subject matter. Well, that's fine and well and good, but Oscar bait movies are not what people are going to see. And you're getting your important stuff on streaming through various shows. You know, I loved Blackbird that's on Apple Plus. It was great. I found it emotionally moving. I found it absorbing. But I haven't found myself having an emotional response to movies. I used to be emotionally bonding to lots of movies. And we're not getting that. When you go see She Said, a great film, important, but when you're watching it, it doesn't get under your skin. It doesn't move you. You can understand intellectually what's happening and why Harvey Weinstein was a monster. And thank God Quentin Tarantino stood up to him when he wanted Quentin to cut out the stuck in the middle with you scene from Reservoir Dogs. But Harvey Weinstein was a piece of shit that ruined, he ruined the legacy of every movie he touched. And that's the thing. Here was a guy that had the industry and the industry that I've loved my whole life. And what did he want to do? He wanted to just pull his dick out in front of actresses. What a shame. And what a waste. What a waste. What a waste of a human life and of an industry. But I don't know. He dominated the Oscar conversation. Thank God he's gone. But I only wish that we can get the Oscar movies that we had one day, where the movies that were part of the cultural zeitgeist were also the biggest and the best movies that we saw all year. But the time is gone. Anyway, what do you guys have to say about it? Groovy Don't Play sends in a super chat and says, things like A24 and the Alamo Drafthouse give me hope. But even A24, and I understand it, God bless A24, because the people over there know what's up. But even then, they just greenlit a 17-year-old to direct his first movie based on the Backrooms videos, which I quite enjoy. I think they're really well done. But is a 17-year-old the person you really want to give millions of dollars to? And I'm not saying you shouldn't. More power to him. But what they're doing is, again, let's chase something in the zeitgeist because it has 100 million views. Hey, hopefully, the movie's going to be great. I hope it is. Happy Console Gamer, our friend Happy Console Gamer. You have been a fan and a supporter of this channel well, pretty much since its inception, really. You've sent me videos back in the day for various milestones, and I want to thank you for that. I've always enjoyed your content. Happy Console Gamer sends me a $20 super chat and says, Robert, great to see you. Free Enterprise 4K. We are trying. The man who owns Free Enterprise, our executive producer, paid for it, has been in kind of not a great place in his own life, and we're gonna make another run at him. This year is the 25th anniversary of when the film had a world premiere at the Sitges Film Festival in Spain. We hope that we're gonna get to be able to make the movie, turn it into 4K this year. I'd love to do a restoration. I've done a recut of the film. I want to sort of change things up. Most fans of the movie, it would just be better. A lot of people, it's such a forgotten film anyway. I think a lot of people would love seeing it. I'll probably get canceled for some of the content. Certain jokes probably aren't going to fly with some, but I hope to do it this year. I hope to do it this year. I really do. On the tip front, Zachary King sends in a tip. By the way, you can send in a super chat or a tip. The tip link is down below in the description. Zachary King says, Rob, I just wanted to say congrats on 50,000 subscribers. I've been with you since the laundry room. What's up with whining about movies, Midnight Metal, and I thought you had announced some new Trek show a while back. I need my content, bro. Zachary, you know what? There was a lot more stuff that I was doing. The John Campea show has taken up a lot of my time over the last year. But I assure you, there's a lot of things percolating, including the return of whining about movies. Elizabeth, Gwendolyn, Bell, and I made a big move together. And, the laundry room was in our old, that's where I started. Elizabeth gave me this microphone. I know it sometimes pops. I can't reach it, but I have a new microphone, and I got her a new microphone too. And, I got to put we have these ready to go for whining about movies. So it'll be much more technically advanced. I know I've been showing this for months, but it's coming. I promise you, it's coming. So yeah, we'll see what happens. So Joseph Michael says, and by the way, I love whining about movies. So for those of you who don't know, Elizabeth and I, she and I did a show called Whining About Movies. We did like 140 episodes where we would share a bottle of wine and talk about movies. Well, we're going to do that again. We're going to bring that back, and it's going to be more technically proficient than before. I mean, hell, I don't even have all my colored gels up. I feel so off considering all YouTubers have colored gels. So Darth Plato says, hey, Rob, I just watched a movie on Polly, the Latino Slants Zoom channel, East Side Sushi. This was a great movie, so everyone please watch this movie. Oh, that's cool. I'm glad that Polly did that. East Side Sushi. I love it. By the way, I am going to have soon a watch-along for Free Enterprise. And a new cut of it, not my finished cut, but a new cut of it for Free Enterprise, for those of you who haven't seen it. And I think I'm going to do it to raise money for Ukrainian relief. Like, I don't know, charge people $10 or something. And then I'll be watching with you and then do question and answer afterwards or something like that. I don't know quite yet. I've been working on that. I was listening to, and maybe Turkish earthquake relief. I'm not sure, but pretty soon. Joseph Michael says, not all change is progress. Too many people have forgotten this. Konstantin Kissin. For those of you who don't know, I have watched Konstantin Kissin for a long time on his trigonometry podcast, and I know a lot of people will tell you, well, Rob, that skews right-leaning, doesn't it? Well, maybe, but I watch all different kinds of things. I mean, the funny thing about people is they always are saying that, oh, Rob, you sound a little bit more right-wing today or a little bit lefty today. Look, I'm not one or the other. I just believe in the human experience and different schools of human thought. Konstantin Kissin, I would advise all of you to watch he recently lectured at the Oxford Union. I think he was part of a debate, but I haven't seen the whole show. I just saw his portion of it. Go and watch Konstantin Kissin's, he's originally from Russia, moved to England. He's a stand-up comic, and He's on YouTube, but his trigonometry podcast that he does is pretty interesting. I haven't watched all the episodes, only when somebody I'm interested in is on it. But please watch his, go just Konstantin Kisin at the Oxford Union and watch his speech. It was really interesting. The Sundowners Club. Hey Rob, we just started our channel 4 months ago, and we'll be covering Picard Season 3. Will you be going on any other channels to talk Picard and Trek? Would love to have you on. Listen, you want to talk Picard and Trek, and thanks for the $25 super chat. I'll come on your channel. I am willing to talk up Picard Season 3 wherever or whenever anybody wants to talk about it. Because look, if we want to get better franchise properties, the people that control the franchise have to understand that certain creators are better than other creators. And if you're a fan of what Terry Matalas has done with Star Trek Picard Season 3, and if the viewership goes up, if people are discussing it on social media, that's how you start change. You start change by supporting good material. To bitch and moan about the status quo does not affect change. That's one of the reasons that if I see a creator working for, like, you can bitch all you want about Disney Star Wars, but it isn't going to change. Disney's not selling Star Wars. Disney's going to own Star Wars for the rest of our lifetimes. So here's the thing. If we like something like Andor and we don't like the Book of Boba Fett, or if you don't like whatever, you have to support the people that even when they're working underneath those you might not appreciate, or the regime of Kathleen Kennedy, or in the case of Star Trek, if you don't like Secret Hideout, and I am not a fan of Kurtzman Trek. However, when underneath that umbrella someone like Terry Matalas is allowed to make his show, you have to support his iteration of the show, because that sends a message to Secret Hideout, which in turn will be a message that CBS, who owns the Star Trek franchise, can look at and go, we're getting a lot more traction all over from Picard Season 3 than we ever got from Discovery or Strange New Worlds. So what's happening over there, and why can't we get more of it? So then the franchise owner, not the person, not the licensee or the person that has the contract to make it. Remember, Paramount, CBS has always owned Star Trek. They're the people that you want to hear your voice. You can't wait until Alex Kurtzman or Secret Hideout doesn't control the franchise anymore. And supporting Terry Matalas' Star Trek is not necessarily supporting Alex Kurtzman and Bad Robot. What it's supporting is the Star Trek franchise. And if more people talk about Terry Matalas' Trek than talk about Discovery or Strange New Worlds or Prodigy or Lower Decks, that's how you affect change. So, yes, I will come talk with, or talk Star Trek with you. King Tannic, Israel is here. Israel, where's the new episode of the Otaku Experience? Tomorrow's Thursday. Get that stuff to me, man. Let's get that up. So there you go. The guy from King's Highway says, how do you not get sleepy during 8-hour live streams? Drugs. No, I'm kidding. I don't know. I mean, you know what? Working adrenalizes me. Like I could work on a set for 12 hours and never sit down. When I was directing like Femme Fatale's episodes, I was bouncing off the walls, and it just, being creative adrenalizes my system. So I don't sleep. Let's see. I hope I get Karanjit Betty says, hey Rob, what do you think of Brendan Fraser as the DCU's Lex Luthor? Gosh, his face is so kind, and he's such a nice guy. I don't know. I mean, maybe. Look, it's hard for me, even when I've written things and I'm casting things that I'm directing. To be honest, I never preconceive of anybody unless I'm actually, like a script now, I'm specifically writing for actors. Probably never get them. Probably never get to make the movie, but I'm specifically writing this script with certain actors in mind. But most of the time I don't do that. So It's like, when people were bitching about Heath Ledger as the Joker, I'm like, it really depends what he's going to do with it. If Brendan Fraser can come in, it's all about what an actor does with his performance. And if an actor does something like, who would have thought Heath Ledger could have done that with the Joker? But he did something that, I mean, he created that. That was from his mind. He took the lines, but he did it that way. And I'm sure Christopher Nolan, when he came in and did that, this is what every director wants, by the way. This is the secret all actors don't understand. When actors, 90% of the actors that you see when you cast something, like you have a casting meeting, let's say you're going to see 20 people. Of those 20 people, 18 people will just read the lines and just the way they are on the page. Now, I'm not saying change the dialogue. Nobody wants that. But an actor will come in and read the lines, and they'll take those lines and do something unique that's unique to them that even the writer didn't consider. And from my own history, there was an actress that came in. She's now a comedian she played a waitress in Free Enterprise. And the line that she had to read was, one of the characters, Eric McCormick, says, "There's a fight in the kitchen." That's the line. Eric McCormick says, "What do you mean there was a fight in the kitchen?" And the answer on the page was, "There was a fight in the kitchen." And then Eric McCormick says, "What do you mean? There's too much salt on this, not enough pepper on that, or whatever." And this actress came in and said, "I mean," and she signed like she was deaf, "There was a fight in the kitchen." Now, that wasn't on the page, but it was the line of dialogue, but she did something with it that I didn't even think about. And when I said that, I was like, in my mind, I'm like, "You're hired." Because I laughed. It was a line that we wrote. And I looked at that and I was just like, that's, the actress made a decision, did something with the line that wasn't on the page. Who would have thought she said it as if she was deaf and signed, using American Sign Language, signed it in the audition. I was like, oh my God. That was, and by the way, that actress's name, who's now a very great comedian, her name is Sean Polofsky. Sean Polofsky. And she has a bit about stretch it out, is what she's known for. So Sean Polofsky did something that, by the way, I don't necessarily recommend it. And what was funny about Sean Polofsky was, it was my friend Jeff Goldsmith that asked me to audition her. So it didn't even come in from an agent. It was just a friend, and I took a chance. Yeah, come on in. And it's in the movie. She still cracks me up. So that's in Free Enterprise. So Guy from King's Highway says M. Night is the modern Hitchcock. You know what? I can't go with you there, but I appreciate that you might say that. Here's the thing about M. Night Shyamalan's movies. I don't think they're nearly as smart as Hitchcock's were. They're interesting, but remember, Hitchcock made 53 feature films. M. Night's not quite there yet, and M. Night's made a lot of movies like The Lady in the Water, The Happening. I don't know if Hitchcock ever reached those depths, but yeah. We shall see. RRTNZ says, "Hail Bob, I hope you and Dave Cullen were able to connect." Passed on a screenshot to Tom Jr. Jackson, pass on to you. I hope it turns out to be a bona fide. I definitely want to connect with Dave Cullen. I'm a big fan of his. And hopefully we can talk Picard, because he liked the first 6 episodes as well as I did, which is great to hear. Tony Reyes with a $50 super chat. Tony, that's so generous. Yo, stop your grinning and drop your linen. I found him. That's Hudson in Aliens. Congratulations on 50,000 subscribers. If I may, I'd like to send you a bottle of Irish whiskey. Where can I send it? Well, you can send it to me, but we'll have to talk off camera. I can't tell you where to send it now. But that'd be very nice. I need more Irish whiskey. I don't have enough in my life. Eric Skelton says, Taylor Sheridan is our new John Milius. I love that. Our new John Milius. Huh. I like that a lot. You know what? I don't think you're wrong. I don't think you're wrong. That's a great. I love that. I love John Milius. I mean, you go back and you watch his movies like Big Wednesday, and then of course Conan, and I'm a big fan of John Milius. Yeah, I like that. That's good. Good one, Eric. Michael Nemo says, "Hey, I just saw the Enterprise cast reunion you edited. I produced it and I ran one of the cameras. Loved it. Why doesn't Miss Blaylock do more cons? Also, why isn't there any Enterprise comics? I have never understood why there's not more Enterprise comics. I don't know. They didn't really do that. The show, I think people look more fondly on it now than they did before, but it's a mystery. But thanks for watching the cast reunion. So for those of you who don't know, I posted it on Twitter. It's called, it's called In Conversation, The First Crew. If you want to find it on, YouTube. So for those of you who don't know, I worked on Roger Lay Jr. and I. He directed, I produced, and he directed. Basically we did all these things really together. But the credits read that he directed, we both produced, and I edited, and we wrote all of the documentaries for the Star Trek The Next Generation Blu-rays and Enterprise discs that came out between 2012 and 2014. So if you buy Star Trek The Next Generation on Blu-ray, the complete series, or you get Enterprise, the complete series on Blu-ray, all the special features that you see, and there's like a full season's worth. There's like 50 hours of special features on the TNG Blu-rays. We did all those for 3 years. That's all we did, was make Star Trek documentaries. It was glorious. We got paid well. We got to, I sat down with each member of the Next Generation cast for 4 hours at a time. And then also I hosted on camera a 25th reunion conversation with them. And then we did these like inside the writer's room that Seth MacFarlane hosted, and we did a lot. But that In Conversation is particularly interesting. We had Brandon Braga, the creator and co-creator and showrunner of Enterprise, come back and host the whole cast. I don't know why Jolene, I think she's married to like a billionaire now, and she likes to sort of keep to herself. I don't know why she doesn't do conventions, and we didn't get her until the last minute. I was really glad. She was really lovely, by the way. And I'll tell you, if you listen to the Inglorious Treksperts 101 Greatest Star Trek Characters, we're all fans of her portrayal. I think she and Tim Russ probably were the best Vulcans outside of the original series. But I loved her. I thought she was great. Sylvain St. Laurent gifted 20 Burnettwork memberships. Wow, that's so nice of you. Thank you, Sylvain. For those of you who don't know, here on the channel, we have a membership chat bi-weekly. And we didn't have one this past week. We're going to have one next week where we all get together, and they usually last 3 or 4 hours, where there's usually about, I don't know, between 20 and 50 people coming and going over the course of 3 or 4 hours. And the way it works is we all jump in on a Zoom call and people raise their hands. You can watch them. We've been putting them online too. And everybody gets 7 minutes to just say whatever you want. And it's a lot of fun. Cash says, I really wish we could have seen Frasier as Firefly. Was that who he's playing in Batgirl? I really would love to have seen that movie. Maybe one day it'll see the light of day, but I understand why they didn't necessarily go with it. I mean, I get it. They have new people. They didn't want to damage the brand. It's kind of unfortunate, but what can we do? But anyways, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, gentle beings, kind souls, anyone here, all of you across the known 28 galaxies, the 28 known galaxies, I'm going to bring this one to an end. But what do you guys think? Put your comments down below. What do you think of the current state of movies, the current Oscars? Did you see any of the great Oscar-nominated movies? Should Top Gun Maverick just have swept it all? I mean, who knows? I don't know. And what can you do? So, you know what? Somebody said I'm using the thumbnail where I am clapping back at Doomcock. Well, that's not good. I'll have to change that. That's bad. You don't want to do that. So I can change that. So I have changed that now. So hopefully that no wonder people aren't watching the stream. It's funny. Doomcock's probably going, wait, what? I don't mean to do that. You know, I look, I've had my beef with Doomcock, and I've said my piece, and then I feel like like I said, I've enjoyed Doomcock's. I've watched his streams for years, but when he again, what I said was I thought was valid, responding to what he said, and I thought that was valuable to do. I don't like having beef with other YouTubers. I mean, again, other YouTubers I consider, if you think about it, other YouTubers are my colleagues. And I'm a big fan of YouTube. I watch a lot of different kinds of people. So I support, and I know John Campy does too. We support our fellow YouTubers. So I want to thank everybody for being here. I want to thank everybody for supporting the channel. I want to thank, that was very nice of Sylvain St. Laurent to give 20 memberships out. Thank you so much. I very much appreciate that. And tomorrow is the premiere of Star Trek Picard Season 3 at the Chinese Theater. It's the red carpet premiere. So that's pretty exciting. I guess that means that the media embargo ends tomorrow. I'm not sure. I don't know. But I don't know when the embargo lifts. But it's interesting. I mean, we're literally getting Quantum Mania and Picard Season 3 in the same week. Now, for me, I'm a Marvel Cinematic Universe fan. I'm a Marvel Comics fan since I was a little kid. And to get a new season of Star Trek and a new Marvel movie in the same week, this is why it's great to be a geek. It's great to be an imagination connoisseur. We're getting great stuff. And even if you don't love everything, it's still we're still getting some great stuff. And I mean, I want everyone to go check out Sharper on Apple Plus because I think it's going to be great. I mean, I'm hoping it's great. Jermaine King says 1 more hour, Rob. Do you really want me to go 1 more hour? I can look at the chat. Marcus F asks, he's a member of the channel, what episodes of TNG should we revisit before Picard Season 3? It's very funny. To answer that question would be to spoil some of Picard Season 3. And there's one episode I'm thinking of that is essential viewing before you watch Picard Season 3. And I want to say what it is, but if I say what it is, if I say the episode, it would be a spoiler of a really great surprise in episode 5 of Star Trek Picard Season 3. So I can't even say what the episode is. And the thing is, the surprise, it is directly tied in to an episode of Next Generation. It is a continuation of something that happens in Next Generation that has yet to be dealt with in modern Star Trek. And I can't say what it is. It's funny to be in that position because for me, it was a highlight of the 10 episodes. And I was like, wait, what? And it was really shocking. I mean, it was really like, oh my, I really loved it. And I was actually very moved by it. And no, it's not Wesley Crusher coming back with the Traveler. It's nothing like that. But it's not, look, people keep asking me, does Star Trek Picard Season 3 deal with conspiracy? It might have a conspiracy in it, but it does not deal with the conspiracy aliens from the first season episode Conspiracy. That's one half of a great Star Trek episode. It does not deal with that. People keep asking me. No, and I don't think that that Terry Metalis would be angry for me to say that no, the conspiracy aliens from Conspiracy do not come back. Remick does not come back. Nobody comes back. So, yeah. Don't worry about that. But it's it's good stuff. I think you're going to really like it. Look, here's the funny thing. To me, I can say whatever I want, but the proof is in the pudding. If I told you something, if I said something was, it does not, if I said something was great and I loved it and it wasn't, then you wouldn't trust me anymore. Like what? Look, I might like things like Doomcock pointed out the other day. He found old tweets of mine. I'm like, oh my god, old tweets, bringing back old tweets, that old chestnut. But like when I saw Captain Marvel, I didn't love Captain Marvel. I didn't think it was top tier Marvel, but I liked it. And as a fan of science fiction, fantasy, alien invasion flicks of all kinds, I mean, my knowledge and love of science fiction films runs the gamut of films that are really great and films that aren't so great. Because when I was growing up, most of the science fiction films that were made were not great. You could probably count the great science fiction films on two hands. So I watched a lot of, I mean, I remember as a kid, I really liked a movie called They Came from Beyond Space with Michael Gough, who later played Alfred in Tim Burton's Batman movies, as the Moon Master. Now, I liked this movie when I was a kid. Would I tell any of you today to watch it? No, it's not good. But so I grew up with a very high tolerance to genre cinema. When I saw Captain Marvel, there were aspects about it that I really liked. I liked delving into the Kree-Skrull conflict and Jude Law, and I didn't bring it with it when I went and saw it. I didn't bring any baggage about what I thought of Brie Larson or anything like that. But I liked it, and I stand by it. Do I think it's a great movie? Would I tell people it's great? No, but it made over $1 billion. What was important about Captain Marvel is it allowed the female audience to have their own movie that they could look at. It was the first female-fronted Marvel movie, and what happened was mothers and daughters got to go to a movie together. And I even, the tweets that Doomcock, I don't know if he's trying to shame me. You can't shame me about my movie, what I like. I like a lot of movies that a lot of people would say that, why do you like that? It sucked. First of all, I don't like people who say movies sucked because that's so lame. Tell me, why do you think it sucked? And give me some good cogent analysis. But, yeah, Justin Toner's like, I'm having the wrong goodbye. They told me to stay. Jermaine King says right here, 1 more hour, Rob. He sent me a super chat to stay going on 1 more hour. I feel like if Jermaine's doing that. And the Sundowners Club says, you mean The Last Starfighter wasn't top shelf sci-fi fantasy? I'll tell you something. I think The Last Starfighter is a really good movie. It's not a great movie, but it's really good. And the time it came out, it was a really enjoyable movie. It was fun. But what's interesting is The Last Starfighter came out in 1984. And here's a movie that I would equate to it. Back to the Future. Back to the Future has one of the best screenplays ever written. Back to the Future is A-list. A-list all the way. Last Starfighter, solid B. Solid B. But if you look at it now, it's a little rough to watch because it was one of the first movies that ever used CG to use for all of its space scenes and all that. So, but at the time, you have to remember that The Last Starfighter was a pretty big movie. So, yeah. So there you go. That's I think it's good. I like it. Would I say it's great? No. But, you know, when you watch Last Starfighter, if you look at the progression, like Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan, the Genesis tape, was one of the first CG, long, lengthy CG shots in a movie. Follow that up in the same year, actually a couple weeks later, Tron was released, also with CGI effects, the first time they were ever done. And, you know, when they were doing the effects for Tron, they couldn't even see what they were doing. They were just punching in coordinates. The first time they saw the finished film was after it was output onto film. It's crazy. And, yeah. And then, of course, Last Starfighter came out 2 years later. And then after that, a young Sherlock Holmes, which had the first CG character in a film, was just released on home video. So there you go. Adrian Barassa is here and says, "Hey, Rob, I just saw Wayne's World again. Everything will get a third. Also, where's the Prince biopic I thought Netflix was doing? Curious on the MG biopic." Yeah, you know what? I would love to see a Prince biopic. I don't know. Wayne's World 3, I'd love to see that. Where are Wayne and Garth now? I don't know. Have no idea. Popcast Unleashed. Hey, guys. For those of you who don't know, the Popcast guys, as a matter of fact, I don't know where you go, where their store is. But if you want your own Popcast merch, you can get it. And they made this Terry Metalis shirt. Terry Trek. You know you want one. They also made it. You know, it's funny. I was like, should I wear that tomorrow? Anyway, probably not. Popcast says, "So hype. See you tomorrow, Rob. Are we getting dinner after the Picard premiere?" Well, Brian, there's the after party at the Roosevelt Hotel. I don't know how that's working out, but there is. Shh, don't tell anyone. RRTNZ says, "Bob, I just realized that minus the glasses, you're great casting for Jor-El in Superman Legacy. Is James Gunn listening?" Guilty. Maybe I could. Who knows? But yeah, the Popcast lads do a great job, and they're gonna be covering it too. And by the way, they've seen Star Trek Picard season 3 more than just the first 6 episodes. I just want to point that out. But anyway, kids, like somebody said, this is the longest goodbye ever. So I'm going to end this episode 832 of Robservations, the show, by the way, about something. And on that note, I will say to all of you, man, people keep bringing up, Sean Meyer brings up Strange Invaders. I love Strange Invaders and Strange Behavior, all that. But Strange Invaders is good. I have Strange Invaders on Blu-ray. Yeah, those are some good movies. All right, listen, I'm going to jump out. I want to say thanks to Tom Jr. Jackson for moderating. He is, of course, the goof emeritus on this channel. I want to thank King Tannic for the Otaku experience. Are we putting one up tomorrow? Is that what we're doing? Do I have one? I don't want to give you any pressure. But on that note, remember, every person you meet has a story to tell that you have yet to hear. And all you have to do is listen. Justin Toner is also moderating tonight's conversation. Thank you for that, Justin. I very much appreciate that. Ooh, King Tannic says, yes, there's a new Otaku experience tomorrow. Well, in that case...
Hey, my name is King, or as some of you might know me better, Israel. I've gotten around, but hopefully you recognize me from my own channel, King Tannic. There's a new show coming to the Burnettwork that I think is pretty exciting. Welcome to the Otaku Experience, hosted by yours truly. There is going to be a weekly series where we dive into the news and the world of anime, manga, and whatever the heck else Japan has to offer us. The show will be pre-recorded and premiere on Thursdays at 2 p.m. Pacific time or 5 p.m. Eastern right here on the Burnettwork YouTube channel.